I'm sitting in my office in Vegas, looking at the latest Power Slap viewership numbers, and I can already hear the keyboards clicking. The MMA purists are out there right now, typing up their hot takes about how we're diluting the UFC brand and destroying the integrity of combat sports. You know what? Let them type. But here's the thing nobody wants to talk about. Decisions like this don't happen in a vacuum. When we launched Power Slap Championship, it wasn't some random Thursday morning idea. We've been watching the slap fighting videos go viral for years. Millions of views. Hundreds of millions. People were consuming this content whether we were involved or not. So we had a choice. Let some random promoters run with it and watch them potentially mess it up, or step in and do it right. Professional medical staff, proper regulations, legitimate athletic oversight. The same way we professionalized mixed martial arts 20 years ago. The boardroom discussions weren't pretty. I'll give you that. Marketing department was split down the middle. Half of them saw the viral potential, the other half worried about brand confusion. What if people think UFC is just about slapping now? They asked. Valid concern, but short-sighted. I've been in this business long enough to know that evolution isn't optional. The companies that refuse to adapt get left behind. Look at boxing. Look how they handled the YouTube boxing phenomenon. They stuck their noses up, called it illegitimate, and watched Jake Paul make more money per fight than most of their champions. Meanwhile, we're over here figuring out how to be part of the conversation instead of complaining about it from the sidelines. The rulebook for Power Slap took months to develop. We couldn't just wing it. Every medical protocol, every safety measure, every judging criterion had to be bulletproof. Because the moment something goes wrong, guess who's getting blamed? Not the underground slap fighting promotions that have been operating in legal gray areas for years. Us. Dr. Davidson from the Performance Institute spent weeks going over the biomechanics, the angle of impact, the force distribution, the concussion protocols. People think slapping is less dangerous than punching because it looks silly on social media. Tell that to the neurologists who've studied the rotational forces involved. The talent acquisition was its own nightmare. We're not dealing with seasoned professional athletes here. We're working with guys who built their names on Instagram and TikTok. Different beast entirely. Their understanding of contracts, drug testing, media obligations, it's all remedial level stuff. But here's what really gets me fired up about the criticism. These same people who are questioning our expansion into slap fighting were probably the same ones saying MMA would never be mainstream 20 years ago. They said cage fighting was too barbaric, too niche, would never get sanctioned in major markets. The Nevada State Athletic Commission meetings for Power Slap approval were just as contentious as the early UFC sanctioning hearings. Same arguments, same concerns, same resistance to change. The difference is, now we have a track record. We've proven we can take an unregulated combat sport and make it legitimate. Lorenzo used to tell me, back in the Zuffa days, that you can't let perfect be the enemy of good. If we waited for everyone to be comfortable with every decision, we'd still be running shows in high school gyms. Progress requires risk. Innovation requires criticism. The production value for Power Slap events matches anything we do for UFC. Same level of broadcast quality, same attention to fighter safety, same commitment to competitive integrity. But because it's slapping instead of mixed martial arts, suddenly we're selling out or chasing trends. I had dinner with Bob Iger a few months ago, and he told me something that stuck. He said the biggest mistake entertainment executives make is underestimating their audience's appetite for new content formats. People said streaming would kill theatrical releases. They said social media would kill traditional television. Wrong on both counts. The advertising revenue from Power Slap events has exceeded projections in every major demographic. The 18 to 34 male viewership numbers are through the roof. These aren't people who were already watching UFC and now they're watching less UFC because of Power Slap. These are new eyeballs, new fans, new customers we're bringing into the combat sports ecosystem. What nobody talks about is the crossover potential. We've had UFC fighters express interest in competing in Power Slap events during their downtime between fights. Different skill set, different training regimen, but same competitive drive. These guys are natural competitors. They want to compete in everything. The international expansion possibilities for Power Slap are massive. Countries where mixed martial arts still faces regulatory hurdles have been way more receptive to sanctioning slap fighting competitions. It's our foot in the door for markets we've been trying to crack for years. The social media engagement metrics tell the real story. Power slap content consistently outperforms traditional fight content in terms of shares, comments, and viral reach. That's not an accident. That's the algorithm telling us what people want to watch. Sure, there are growing pains. Any new venture has them. The talent pool is still developing. The judging criteria are still being refined. Some of the early competitors weren't ready for the professional sports lifestyle. But those are operational challenges, not fundamental flaws in the concept. The Conor McGregor phenomenon taught us that personality and entertainment value can coexist with legitimate athletic competition. The guys who break through in power slap aren't just the ones who hit the hardest. They're the ones who understand how to build their brand, engage with fans, create storylines that people want to follow. I was in the production truck during our first major power slap event, and the energy was different. The crowd reactions, the social media buzz, the real-time viewer engagement. It reminded me of the early UFC days when everything felt new and dangerous and exciting. That's not something you can manufacture. That's lightning in a bottle. The brand confusion argument doesn't hold water when you look at how other sports entertainment companies operate. Disney owns Marvel and Pixar and ESPN and ABC. Nobody says Marvel movies are diluting the Disney brand. Different products for different audiences under the same corporate umbrella. We're not abandoning mixed martial arts. We're not reducing our investment in UFC. We're diversifying our portfolio and maximizing our reach in the combat sports space. That's good business. That's smart strategy. That's how companies survive and grow in competitive markets. The fighter compensation structure for Power Slap needed to be completely different from UFC. These guys aren't training full-time for years, building entire careers around one sport. The pay scale, the performance bonuses, the sponsorship opportunities, everything had to be recalibrated for a different kind of athlete. Medical oversight for Power Slap actually exceeds what we do for some UFC events. The concussion protocols are more stringent. The pre-fight screening is more comprehensive. The post-competition monitoring is more thorough. We learned from 20 years of combat sports medicine and applied those lessons from day one. The criticism about legitimacy always makes me laugh. Half the people complaining about Power Slap being fake sport are the same ones who watch professional wrestling or spend their weekends arguing about fantasy football. Entertainment has value. Athletic competition has value. Sometimes they overlap, sometimes they don't. Both can coexist. International broadcasting deals for Power Slap came together faster than anyone expected. Distributors who'd been hesitant about mixed martial arts content were immediately interested in slap fighting events. Less regulatory complexity, broader appeal, easier content classification for international markets. The female talent pool for women's power slap divisions is growing exponentially. We're seeing trained athletes from boxing, kickboxing, even MMA transitioning over to test themselves in a different format. These aren't influencers looking for quick social media fame. These are serious competitors. Performance Institute data on slap fighting biomechanics has applications beyond just our events. The research we're conducting on impact forces, head movement, defensive techniques, it's advancing the science of combat sports across the board. That knowledge benefits every fighter in every discipline. The venue requirements for Power Slap events are completely different from UFC shows. Smaller footprint, different staging needs, different audience flow patterns. We've been able to experiment with intimate event experiences that wouldn't work for mixed martial arts, but create incredible atmosphere for slap fighting. Training camps specifically focused on power slap preparation have started popping up around the country. Coaches who understand the specific techniques, conditioning requirements, mental preparation needed for this format. It's developing its own ecosystem of specialized expertise. The crossover marketing opportunities between UFC and power slap properties are just starting to be explored. Fighters appearing on each other's events, cross-promotional storylines, shared content creation. We're building a combat sports universe, not just individual properties. Revenue diversification was always part of the long-term strategy. Economic downturns affect different entertainment sectors differently. Having multiple revenue streams from different audience bases provides stability that single-focused companies don't have. The streaming platform bidding for exclusive power slap content has been more aggressive than anything we've seen for traditional fight content. Netflix, Amazon, Apple, they're all seeing the viral potential and the demographic reach. That drives up the value of everything we produce. Local athletic commission relationships have actually improved through the Power Slap sanctioning process. We're working more closely with regulators, providing more transparency in our operations, building trust that benefits all our properties. The merchandising potential for Power Slap brands and personalities is totally different from traditional fight merchandise. More mainstream appeal, broader demographic reach, less niche market constraints. The revenue projections are encouraging. Looking at the numbers, looking at the engagement, looking at the growth trajectory, Power Slap isn't a distraction from our core business. It's an expansion of our core business. Combat sports entertainment is bigger than just mixed martial arts, and companies that understand that are going to dominate the next decade. The television executives who passed on early UFC deals are the same ones calling us now about Power Slap content. They see the demographic data. Young males, international markets, social media integration. All the metrics they missed the first time around. History's repeating itself, except now we're in the driver's seat. Talent scouts are already identifying the next generation of Power Slap competitors. Former collegiate wrestlers, retired boxers, guys with the hand-eye coordination and mental toughness, but maybe not the full skill set for mixed martial arts. It's creating opportunities for athletes who wouldn't have had a professional combat sports career otherwise. The insurance and liability discussions for Power Slap were more complex than anything we'd handled before. Creating actuarial tables for a sport that didn't exist professionally required building data models from scratch. Lloyd's of London underwriters spent months studying impact footage before they'd even consider coverage terms. Pharmaceutical partnerships have approached us about recovery products specifically designed for Power Slap athletes. Ice baths, compression therapy, specialized concussion protocols. The medical technology sector sees this as a testing ground for innovations that could benefit all contact sports. Regional Power Slap leagues are already forming organically. Amateur competitions in Texas, Florida, California. Guys training specifically for this format. Developing techniques we hadn't even considered. The grassroots growth is happening faster than we projected. Equipment manufacturers are designing specialized gear. Wrist braces, neck strengthening devices, specialized mouth guards. There's an entire cottage industry forming around Power Slap competition that creates jobs, drives innovation, generates economic activity in communities across the country. The legal framework for Power Slap athlete contracts had to be written from scratch. No precedent existed for professional slapping competition agreements. Anti-doping protocols, image rights, performance standards. Every clause required negotiation with athletic commissions and legal departments. International expansion requests are coming in weekly. European promoters want licensing deals. Asian markets are particularly interested. Countries where traditional martial arts are regulated heavily see Power Slap as a cleaner path to sanctioned competition. College recruitment programs are being discussed. Power Slap scholarships for athletes who show aptitude in the format. Building pipeline relationships with athletic departments that could feed talent directly into professional competition. The NCAA hasn't even figured out how to categorize it yet. The social responsibility angle gets overlooked by critics. We're taking something that was happening in unregulated environments, backyard competitions, underground events, social media stunts, and professionalizing it. Medical oversight, proper safety protocols, legitimate athletic careers. That's harm reduction, not harm creation. Television production techniques we developed for Power Slap are now being applied to UFC broadcasts. Camera angles that capture impact differently. Audio engineering that picks up crowd reactions more effectively. Replay technology that shows technique details viewers couldn't see before. Corporate sponsorship interest has exceeded projections in every category. Energy drinks, sports apparel, automotive, technology companies. Brands that never showed interest in traditional martial arts are lining up for Power Slap partnerships. The association feels fresher, less intimidating to mainstream advertisers. The youth engagement numbers tell the real story. Teenagers who weren't watching UFC are watching Power Slap. They're creating their own content inspired by what they see, building fan communities, driving organic growth through platforms we don't even advertise on. Training facilities dedicated to Power Slap preparation are opening in major markets. coaching certifications, technique development, conditioning programs specifically designed for this format. It's becoming a legitimate athletic discipline with its own infrastructure. The data analytics we're collecting from Power Slap events are revolutionary, measuring impact force, reaction times, recovery patterns in ways that weren't possible with traditional combat sports. This information benefits every athlete we work with across all our properties. Merchandising revenue streams from Power Slap already exceed some established UFC fighter brands. T-shirts, energy drinks, training equipment. The mainstream appeal translates directly to consumer purchasing behavior. Walmart, Target, major retailers are stocking Power Slap merchandise alongside traditional sports products. Celebrity endorsements came organically. Musicians, actors, social media influencers attending events, posting content, driving awareness we couldn't have bought with advertising budgets. When Kevin Hart starts posting Power Slap content, you know you've crossed into mainstream entertainment territory. The critics will keep criticizing. The keyboard warriors will keep typing. But while they're complaining about the direction of combat sports, we're building the future of combat sports entertainment. And when the dust settles, when the revenue reports come out, when the viewership numbers speak for themselves, we'll see who was right about the direction this industry is heading.